Transforming feedback from fear to growth feedback. It's a word that can trigger everything from anxiety to empowerment. For many of us, feedback stirs up memories of moments we'd rather forget, harsh critiques, misunderstandings, or emotional hangovers from feeling misunderstood. Yet, feedback, when approached intentionally, holds the potential to shape us into stronger, more resilient individuals. Let's dive into how we can transform our relationship with feedback into something that fosters growth, even in the face of challenges. Hey, it's Dr. Joe, and I help professionals and executives manage stress, build resilience, and enjoy life without alcohol. Today, I want to talk about something we all encounter but often struggle with: feedback. Whether it's in our personal lives, professional settings, or recovery journeys, feedback can feel like a double-edged sword. When we approach it with the right mindset, it can be a powerful tool for growth and connection. Um, the challenge of feedback. Recently, I found myself in a situation that reminded me of how hard feedback can hit. A moderator in a TikTok community that I value and cherish gave me corrective feedback about one of my posts. My first reaction: complete defensiveness. I wanted to explain, to justify. The interaction left me with an emotional hangover that lingered into the next day. This experience reminded me of an episode of the Addicted Mind podcast: Turn Criticism into Growth, Transforming Your Response to Criticism. The episode explored why criticism feels so personal and how to use it as a tool for transformation. It inspired me to revisit my own journey with feedback and to reflect on how past experiences influence how we respond. How our past shapes our relationship with feedback. So, reflecting on my own childhood, feedback was rarely a positive experience. I had moments that reinforced fear and avoidance. Criticism from a role model. So, my older sister once returned a letter I wrote to her. She was in college, I was in elementary school, and she had marked it up in red pen like a school assignment. That moment crushed me. Humiliation in public. Disciplinary action in kindergarten, witnessed by that same sister when she was in a role as a student teacher, solidified the shame I associated with criticism. Conditional approval. My parents were distracted by many things, and it grew only when I achieved academically. So it motivated me to excel, but it tied my sense of worth to external validation. These experiences didn't teach me the value of constructive feedback. Instead, they bred perfectionism and defensiveness, traits I've worked hard to unlearn. So, learning to reframe feedback as adults, we have the power to take charge of that process. Whether we're receiving critique on a professional project, guidance in a personal development, or observations in recovery, feedback can be an opportunity if they are approached with intention. Here's how I've learned to receive feedback: be selective about your sources. Feedback should come from someone whose expertise and intentions you trust. For example, I recently hired a consultant to review my private practice website. I knew this individual would provide constructive criticism with care, which made it easier to embrace their suggestions. Pick the right timing. Timing can be everything. Seek feedback when you are in a good mental space and have the emotional bandwidth to process and act on it. Use a mantra or an affirmation. I covered those in a recent video. Prepare your mindset with a phrase that grounds you. Mine can be, I am a skilled and worthy therapist. It helps me center myself when facing critique. Focus on actionable feedback. Ask for input that you can act on. Avoid soliciting opinions on things beyond your control. Establish boundaries. Feedback should never come at the expense of your dignity. Be mindful of sources that deliver feedback unkindly or are in ways that are not constructive. Feedback in recovery and relationships have some specific components. For those in recovery or navigating personal growth, feedback carries unique challenges. In my work with families, when I support them supporting a loved one in recovery, I encourage establishing boundaries around feedback, respecting the individual's journey. So instead of asking, "Are you going to meetings? What step are you on?" Try saying something like, "I've noticed you seem more irritable lately. How can I support you?" Making agreements on feedback can be helpful. Create shared expectations about what types of feedback are helpful and what crosses boundaries. This fosters trust and clarity. So, lessons in vulnerability. Not every feedback experience is positive. Sometimes poorly delivered feedback can leave lasting scars. A loved one of mine endured months of a toxic feedback loop, receiving unkind and unconstructive critique that damaged their confidence. Watching their struggle reminded me that feedback must come with care. Similarly, I recall my own struggle with perfectionism during a tough professional moment years ago. I made a significant mistake at work, and even though my colleagues and supervisor forgave and moved on, I held myself in psychological shackles. My perfectionism demanded rumination and self criticism, preventing me from moving forward. Turning feedback into growth. So, here are some practical steps to turn feedback into a growth opportunity. Pause before reacting. Give yourself time to process the feedback before responding defensively. Reflect on the intent. Is the feedback coming from a place of care or critique? Extract the useful pieces. Even poorly delivered feedback may contain something actionable. Let go of the rest. Disregard feedback that doesn't align with your goals or values. Take small steps. Act on one or two key points rather than feeling overwhelmed by the entire critique. And so, my final thoughts on feedback is it is rarely easy, but it's an essential part of growth. Whether you're seeking feedback on a project, navigating recovery, or working through personal challenges, the way you approach feedback can transform the impact. If this resonates with you, I invite you to reflect on how you receive and give feedback in your life. What boundaries do you need? What mindsets can you shift? As always, the journey is yours, but you don't have to take it alone. Let's learn, grow, and thrive together. So, the resources I suggest for this would be, um, especially on vulnerability and feedback, I recommend Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.